Hi everyone. So today we're going to be talking about the case of Keeshae Jacobs. Before we get started, I do want to say that all the links I use for research are down below. But if it gets to a point where it seems like I'm not really talking about evidence or the investigation, it's because I couldn't find anything on it. Um, to say that the police work on this has been less than subpar would be putting it nicely. Uh, so we have a lot of this is from the mother's point of view, her own quotes, what she says happened, because I really just could not find anything about an investigation or searches or really anything like that. So this video might sound a little weird, and that's why. But I want to go ahead and get into this, and let's talk about Keeshae. So Keeshae was 21 years old, and she went missing on September 26th of 2016. And this is a quote from Tony describing her daughter. Tony is the mom, by the way. And she says, "I love my daughter so much, and I miss her so much. It doesn't change. Every day, everything reminds me of her." End quote. Keeshae was last seen at a house around or at Chimborazo Park. Chimborazo? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. This is in Virginia, by the way. She told her family that she would see them the next day, but she would never return home. So, what happened? Well, the evening of September 26th seemed pretty typical in the Jacobs household. Keeshae was getting ready to go out while her mom and brother settled in for the night. She'd had an argument with her boyfriend, so she seemed a little upset. And another quote from Tony, she says, "She was pretty upset, but me and her brother seemed to talk her down, and then she was like, all right, Ma, I'm gonna go out with one of my friends. I'll be back tomorrow," end quote. Tony watched her daughter walk out the front door and said, "All right, just be careful. Let me know you made it there safely." And around 11, Tony got ready for bed. She received a message from Keeshae telling her that she made it. Tony told her daughter she loved her, and Keeshae said it back. When Tony would wake up, Keeshae still hadn't come home. And in the article I was reading, she had promised to make her brother pancakes the next morning. And she said when she got up, Tony said when she got up, there was no smell of pancakes in the house, and she just had like a feeling that something was off. But Tony would get ready for work and figured she'd hear from her daughter later. But when lunch break rolled around, she still hadn't heard from Keeshae. So she called her, but the calls went to voicemail, and Tony knew something was wrong. Obviously, whenever you know a family member real well, they answer your phone calls and they just aren't. Something just feels weird, right? I feel like this is in almost every case. The family calls them, the calls go to voicemail, something's wrong, and then the case never gets taken seriously. So she started to call Keeshae's friends, who said they would call around and see if anyone had heard anything, but when they checked back in, they said no one had. And I think in the articles I had also been reading, Tony had to reach out to them first, even though it said that they checked back in. So she had to reach back out to them and get like answers from them, which I feel is kind of weird. Like, even if they're not like being weird about it, they should, I don't know, be the one to call the mom because the mom's worried. I don't know. Does that make sense? Like, give her an answer in a timely fashion. I don't know. So Tony would actually make some of Keeshae's friends take her to the house where she was last seen, and when she arrived, she spoke to a man named Otis Tucker at the door. He said he knew her through a mutual friend and that he had seen her around 5 p.m., which Tony said wasn't true because Keeshae was at home at that time. Tony says Otis kept changing the time he saw her, and I think I saw it like 3 or 4 times he kept changing the time. So this man is just lying, like he's just going with it whatever time comes to his head, I guess. I don't know. It's really wild, like. On November 1st, 2022, police would respond to a disturbance at an apartment complex, and when it was searched, a woman was found dead. It was not Keeshae that was there, but Otis would be identified in connection with the woman's death, and would be arrested on second-degree murder and tampering with evidence. There has not been evidence, supposedly, to link him to Keeshae, but Tony believes there is. Tony believes that police are ignoring the evidence. She even held up a photo of Otis at a public press conference. I'm not sure if it was one she held or what, but it was a public press conference, and she held up a photo of him. And she was very adamant. She said that he was the last person to have seen her. And here's another quote from Tony. She says, "He was the last person and knows my daughter's whereabouts and what happened to my daughter. I'm fighting. I'm fighting with everything in me, and it is so hard sometimes." End quote. So, we're already getting to the last bit of what I have for you, and I just want to reiterate, I could find nothing about police investigation. Maybe there is somewhere, but I just couldn't really find anything. Nothing about like they did any searches, they interviewed anybody. I'm sure they're gonna say that they had. I couldn't find anything, maybe because it's still an ongoing case. I just wanted to put that out there yet again that I could find nothing. So, just months after she went missing, sadly, Keeshae's brother, Devon, or Davon, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, it's a Deavon, but sadly, he was shot to death at a Motel 6 in Richmond because of a struggle. His killer was convicted and is serving time, so he did get justice for his death. To end this on another quote from Tony, Tony says, "I don't believe I fully mourned my son's death because I still have to fight for Keeshae. So the fact that she's still out there, that pushes me. It pushes me, and I have to do what the mother has to do, and I have to fight for my daughter because there's apparently no one else that is going to fight for her like me." End quote. And I really wanted to end on that because of that last line. I have to fight for her because if apparently there's no one else that will. And I really feel like most of the articles I went through, it was Tony talking about her daughter, talking about her last day she saw her, talking about how she thinks Otis Tucker is involved. It's Tony bringing this case to the public. It's not the police. When I say I couldn't find anything about an investigation, I could find nothing. Maybe I'm looking in the wrong place, but I could find nothing. It was Tony. It's the family doing this for Keeshae. So I really wanted to end on that because I really think that really sums up what Tony's been doing, is fighting for Keeshae all this time because she's the only one doing it. And she shouldn't have to be. It's absolutely despicable that nothing is found. Touching on Otis Tucker, I definitely think the very least, I'm not saying he's done anything to Keeshae, but I do think the very least is he knows something. Why else would you continuously change the time you saw someone if you weren't trying to hide something? And it's the fact that he kept changing the time, like he was trying to like hit the lucky time, like a hit the lucky number. Okay, she wasn't home this time. Okay, that's when I saw her. Honestly, I would have just stopped giving a time because that just makes you look more guilty, giving all these different times. And it doesn't say like what times he gave her. I just saw that there was several, so that's really weird to me. And we already know he's capable of murdering someone. Like he was literally arrested for second-degree murder and tampering with evidence. We know he's capable of this kind of thing. And the fact that the weirdness with Keeshae's mom and that he had seen her, like he wasn't trying to say he hadn't seen her. Yeah, I saw her. I think that he really needs to be looked into, and the fact that they're just saying that there's no evidence that links them, there has to be. There has to be something around the house, at the house. There has to be something there, and I don't understand why they're not finding it. Maybe Otis has been looked into a little bit more and they're not saying anything. I always try to give it the benefit of the doubt because a lot of these cases they don't say anything and they're doing stuff behind the scenes, but also a lot of the time they're not. So maybe they are, maybe they're not, but it's been a really long time. 2016, that's 18, 19, 20, 8 years ago, 8 years ago now, for nothing to have happened. Like there's no updates other than the The thing with Otis getting arrested for a separate murder, there's been nothing going on. And I feel like that's a long time for nothing to be going on. You know what I'm saying? So I really feel for Keeshae and her family. She lost both of her children. She doesn't have answers for one. I can't imagine how that has to feel. And I am so sorry, Tony, if you hear this video. I'm so sorry. I hope that the police come through. I hope that something comes through and you can find Keeshae somehow, some way. Because Keeshae should be with her family. If you have any information, the Richmond Police Department phone number is 804-646-0729, and that will be on the end screen. Again, the number for Richmond PD is 804-646-0729. Thank you so much for listening to Keeshae's story, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.